Hello Comms 363 students. In this video I'm going to go through compiling your draft. These are the main points that you need to know even if you don't have time to watch the rest of this video. Your draft is something that's required to be complete and on time, and if it's not, then there's a potential of 5% penalty on your final group report grade. And I will not be giving feedback between the draft and the final report submission. It's simply a checkpoint, and I will be checking that it's complete and submitted on time only after the final reports are graded to see whether you get the penalty or not. What you're doing in this report draft is putting the best content in from your individual reports. So you'll be revising those first before submitting them to your compiler of the draft. This report draft is a very early draft. It's submitted before you make any further revisions or additions to your report. There will be revisions and there will be additions. The colored text is to show each author's contributions. You have a different audience in your final report. The individual reports were addressing myself and your marker. They're like in an organization, an internal report to your boss, to your peers, to your department. And so a lot of the material in your individual reports was material that you needed to know for yourself as background knowledge. But that material is not necessarily everything you're going to say to the external audience. The final report is addressed to the website owners. And so, as a result of the different audience, there's different content for the intro and methods sections especially. And structuring the findings is a very challenging thing to do for your final report, but it's very important that they be structured by themes. And what we mean by themes are words like navigation or ethos. Okay, there'll be usability terms from the Smith Handbook, page 30, or there'll be rhetorical terms, and there'll be terms that apply to the website globally. Okay, things like visuals. Visuals can apply to either their use of images or their text coloring, their contrast, their layout of pages. All of those aspects are visual, but they can apply to not just one page, but multiple pages of the website. What we don't want to see is for you to structure the findings by research method. Do not have a section within your findings that says survey analysis, because under visuals as a heading, you should have reasoning based on survey data and based on the website itself. It shouldn't just be one or the other all the time. And if you have separation by method, then you're going to have potential duplication, and it will not be audience-centered. Your audience wants to know which features of the website are strong or weak, rather than what different types of data revealed. So those are the main points. Let's move on to the assignment instructions. The draft instruction manual has the older deadline in it. It should be the 26th, I think, Friday. Your goal is to have 800 words per group member. Now that is going to vary. What if your group did not have a very good coordination before writing the individual report? Maybe there's a lot of duplication, which resulted in taking out maybe half of two people's reports, finding sections. Okay, but that's the goal, is to make sure that you include as much as possible, deleting some necessary repetition. There's no maximum length. You'll end up possibly with more words than you need for your final report. A lot of this material here is demonstrated in the template itself. At the end, you'll include your word count. That's for your own sake, to understand how much needs to be cut down or expanded. Certain types of the content for the final report are not required in the draft. And definitely it's not required to blend, because if you blend two peoples together, then the color coding doesn't make sense anymore. And so submit it before you blend. Submit it using this file name, because it'll go to the same Dropbox as your final version. And draft.docx will tell us that this is your draft version. You might want to keep the color coding on after the draft is submitted so that you can compile your author credits appendix. And then remove all the color coding until when you're done, right before the final. Now let's go to the template, which is here. Okay, I took the title page from the template for your final report, and I just altered this. And in order to understand what fits here, most of it will be drafted later, but some material might actually fit here. The person compiling this does actually have to refer to this, the final manual, because the template won't tell you what is needed within the introduction section. So I'm going to go to the introduction here, and it tells you what you need to do within this section now, because it's a new introduction, structured not like an abstract, not like your individual reports. And so it's got some things like research questions and topics that might actually be referred to later in methods. But this material was possibly in a methods section of an individual report, and now it's going to be condensed and put into the intro. The methods section is also new for the final report, and it has content that might be from both individual report A and B. Okay. And in findings, the most important thing to know for your draft is your topical arrangement. And I think, yeah, your conclusions. Some people didn't follow the instructions in their individual report and didn't have a list of conclusions. They wrote like an essay-like conclusion. And so there might be some challenge in terms of including each person's conclusions. And recommendations also had a similar issue with people not coming to this document to find the instructions. So let's look at the template. In the template, you'll see a few odd things that I'd like to explain. This one here, you can delete this if you like, because you won't have necessarily any material to put in it from your individual reports, or you could leave it blank. Eventually, you're going to have a table at the end of your methods section, and it will summarize aspects of your participants from the survey. So it doesn't need to be filled in right now. It's just there as a reminder. In the findings section, I've now highlighted this part. It wasn't highlighted in an earlier version. It's very important to know that the headings below are merely samples. The topics that you choose for subheadings will vary. And so this is just a suggestion. You don't have to include a heading like this. I'm just giving a suggestion that perhaps macro level analysis from individual report A, some of it might fit under the findings, and it might be something to cover before we get into more focused areas like navigation. These are also subheadings that I'm just suggesting. They're just coming out of the blue. Please do not imitate those. They're just suggestions. You want to be able to craft these headings based on what you have to say, and you want to be able to make sure that it's content analysis of the website, not context. Okay? Context analysis does not belong in findings, only analyzing what is on the website right now. I put in some sample figures so that you can see that the red coloring goes with the red person so that you can see that figure belongs to them. And it doesn't have any meaning that I've put red, blue, and green in here. I'm just suggesting that maybe orange didn't have anything to say in some sections. What if it's just all blue? I'm fine with that. Okay, so I'm just suggesting here. This is also not a heading and it's not a caption, it's just an explanation. So you can ignore that and delete it if you like, but I'm just explaining what I'm doing in the template. Other things to notice. Eventually you'll format your images and your figures and tables so that any narrower ones are right aligned. You don't have to align them this way right now. They can be messy at this point. You can just copy them in. But I'm just showing you that eventually, if something is 2/3 of the width or less, and it's still legible, it gets right aligned and the text goes to the left. But you don't have to do that right now. As the compiler, you don't have to format. As you can see, these are very generic. Please don't use that heading. That would be ridiculous. Conclusions. I'd like to explain what I'm doing here for the template. All I'm showing you is that it's a bulleted list and that each of these items come from the findings above. They're just claims. This is good about the website. This is bad about its visuals. You know, and you want to be able to say, okay, maybe your subheadings help this reader, because if you have a list of more than 6 items in a row, it can be overwhelming for a reader. And so it's always a good idea to subcategorize when you have a long bulleted list. And if you do enter any subcategories, it will help you later, because if you get rid of the orange material under, let's say, visuals, if you get rid of it from your findings, you'll also need to get rid of it from your conclusions, because the conclusions is a summary of your claims from findings. This is where you might put people's insights from their macro level analysis, might fit from individual report A. And in recommendations, I'm showing you also what it might kind of look like when you're done. You don't have to format it like this. You can have these based on audiences, like let's say one might be for future researchers, might be for recommendations for the website managers, okay, and some might be problem-based, okay. However you want to structure your recommendations, you can put in whatever headings you like, but eventually they will look kind of like an action statement followed by explanations. Right now they don't have to look like that, but I'm just giving that as a reminder. References are optional for the draft. However, it would be very good to put them in, because you don't want to have to rewrite the references, especially if the student has corrected a lot of the errors. And you'll notice that duplication is removed, but these are not duplicates, because they're 4 different pages from the Asthma Society website, or they're 4 different pages from SALTS, and they're noted by A, B, C, D. So your in-text references will have A, B, C, D. And then the titles will be different for each web page, and the URL at the end will be for that specific page rather than the entire website. Any other secondary sources will also just be listed here. Appendix A for your final report will be your selected survey questions. And this is optional for the draft, but I'm just showing you that this is what it will look like. And you'll use your Microsoft Word file on D2L. And if you want to put it in here, you would be deleting any duplicates. And notice that this is from the Word file. There's no data in here. These are not data, they're just rating scales. And this Word document also includes all of the instructions given before we even get to question wording. So that's the thing that the Word document includes that the Excel files do not. These are for any larger images or tables, and they're If you want to know if they're large enough to qualify for the appendix, please see the figure and table formatting section of the Smith Handbook. This might not be Appendix C, it might be Appendix J, depending on how many larger images there are in other appendices. This will be your final appendix, and the author credits are optional for the draft. I'm just putting it in here so that you could record who compiled the draft. So really this is the only line that matters for the draft. Please do not fill in the numbers here of page length or word length, because these should only refer to the final version. So this can't be filled in for the draft. There's going to be a lot of changes, and so doing so would be a waste of time at this point. And I'm not looking at the number of words per section when I look at the draft. I'm just looking at the color coding to see whether everyone has contributed substantially within your group. And that's all you need to know for the draft compilation, and I wish you well, and I'm looking forward to you getting past this draft so that you can work on refining and making your report readable for an external audience. Talk to you later.